I think it's really important for people, even if they're not, worried or concerned about their alcohol use, to maybe have a look at, being mindful about their drinking over the Christmas period. Um, the Christmas period would be associated with excess of food and drink and that. So I think that there's no harm for people to, kind of consider how much they're taking, because obviously there's a health benefit to reducing your alcohol intake also. One of the campaigns that Drink Aware run is a mindful drinking campaign, and really all that means is that people are actively, considering before they take a drink, why am I taking this drink, without judgment, and do I actually want this drink? Will drinking this lead to negative outcomes? And I think looking at this approach, it gives people a basis for a healthier relationship with alcohol. So I think that that's overall a very positive thing.
And along with that, kind of almost in tandem with that mindfulness, does tracking your intake as well work? Where if you're kind of looking and you've reached a number that maybe you mightn't be too happy with in a certain day or two, it might cause you to rethink, with, as you said, whether you want to take the next one.
Yeah, I think so. I think, the danger, I suppose, around Christmas time in particular, Christmas Day, a lot of drinking is done at home. And I think, while you're in maybe a bar environment, it's easier to kind of have a little bit of a handle on how much you have drank, or how many drinks you've consumed. So I think especially at home, it's probably good to be, kind of aware of how much you are consuming, because that prevents you from maybe, kind of overdoing it and having negative consequences. Um, some tips might be just like swapping out an alcoholic drink for a non-alcoholic drink, or even just taking smaller measures. And I think certainly just setting a limit on how much you intend to drink on either over the course of a day, or on a night out over the Christmas period is very useful. Um, a tip maybe might be to avoid, in the run up to Christmas, kind of post work drinks. That might look like kind of going out earlier in the evening, and drinking more than you intend.
And in terms of over Christmas itself, is there any kind of advice for people who maybe want to avoid drinking, or even, as you said, if there's drinking happen at home, to maybe not start early in the day, as could be quite common?
Absolutely. I think setting reasonable limits for yourself is very positive. I think also ensuring that you're eating before consuming alcohol, and that will limit the impact. Maybe alternating an alcoholic drink with water. Those are all good tips. I think it's important to be aware that Christmas in general, while it's a well, it's a happy time for a lot of people. It can be difficult. It can be particularly difficult for people who are maybe in recovery from alcohol. And it's just to be conscious of that while we celebrate with, work colleagues or friends over the season.
Yeah, and it's important, I suppose, not to pressurise anyone who doesn't want to drink into doing so, and to kind of alleviate that stigma around people that's so often seen in Irish culture, of people who don't want to have a drink.
Absolutely. I mean, people are, I think we do have a reputation of kind of being a heavy drinking culture. And I think that is changing somewhat. But I think for people who maybe have struggled with problematic drinking or even alcoholism, I think sometimes, we may not know that information. I think there's a really valid point of kind of accepting if somebody doesn't want to take a drink, that they have their own reasons for that. So I think that just makes life a little bit easier for people who are maybe struggling with even cravings over the Christmas period, but trying to manage that. So yeah.
And I suppose, just to finish, what advice would you have for people who maybe think that they're not even so much problematic drinkers, but are starting to develop maybe an unhealthy relationship with alcohol?
Sure. I suppose one of the things that I would highlight is that there is a lot of services out here in the Midwest and in County Clare. There's a lot of help out there if you are concerned about your drinking or a loved one's drinking. I think it's important to pick up the phone and access those services. We work with people here in a residential program in Bushy Park, and while that mightn't be the first option for people, or it might be more appropriate for somebody to support themselves around their drinking or reducing their drinking on a community basis. There are a lot of services in the Midwest, and I'd encourage anyone, if you are concerned, just to reach out. If your drinking is causing you unhappiness or difficulties in your relationship and your work life, with your health, pick up the phone. We are more than happy to talk anyone through what supports are there.